Hey everyone, welcome to the Pesty podcast. Today I am with Gary Burch. Gary is an account executive at Cinch, a marketing automation platform with PCT top 100 pest control companies like Moxie, Pestco, and Rottler Pest Control listed as their clientele. And today we are going to be talking about automation. Gary, welcome to the pod. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Andrew. Happy to be here. This is awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate your time. And by the end of this, I think our audience is going to appreciate your insight and expertise on the automation side of things. In my experience of being around the industry for over 10 years and really having an intimate look with Pesty at these companies for the last few years, one of the biggest areas of opportunity that I see, in particular on the marketing and sales side, where I get the most insight, is in automation. We have a lot of automations in my own agency, and the efficiency that comes with that cannot be understated. I mean, it really
Absolutely.
can play such a critical role, right, in making a company successful. And being that we are in an industry that is not the most tech savvy, it seems like
Yep.
Cinch solves a really big problem. So let's start kind of at a high level. My first question is, what role does data play in crafting marketing strategies in the pest control industry?
Yeah, great question. The interesting thing is that, like you said, when you talk to companies, when you talk to pest control owners, operators, managers out there, the biggest challenge that they have is being able to use the data they have to accomplish a certain objective, right? Maybe that's cross-selling their existing customer base or winning back past customers. So when I speak to companies, whether it's one-on-one or it's a speaking engagement or at conferences, and I ask companies, hey, do you feel like you could do a good job of maximizing on the value in your current database? And 99% of companies, they say no, either one aspect or all aspects, whether that's winning back past customers, retention pieces, new customer welcome. And so what we see is that there's so much good data in your database. There's so much good data, whether it's field routes, pest pack, Stack, whatever you're using out there, there's just untapped potential. And so I call it mining your data for dollars by being able to go in and understand what data is in there. The challenge is with their current systems, it can be really difficult. It can be difficult to understand, well, what data is important and why is it important, or to slice it and dice it and figure out what you can actually use. So the value that we've seen and why I honestly, as an employee, was sold on coming over to Cinch is because that data Cinch can pull over and allow you to segment by any data point you want to. So let's just say you're wanting to maximize some revenue during the summer on your existing stops, right? So you have general pest control customers and you want to promote your mosquito services during the summer, right? So the ability to go in and pull the data and segment, say, hey, any customer in this city that has general pests but does not have mosquito service and has been with us for at least 2 years, boom, and it automatically creates a list for you, and then you can run that list of customers through automated communication. So going back to the original question, Andrew, is data is everything. And if you're not leveraging the data in your database, you are 1,000,000% missing out on revenue opportunities or retention opportunities with your existing customers.
So is that data is available in their database or maybe across databases, right? You mentioned a few of the most common, platforms that are used in our industry. And I guess what's interesting to me too, and where I wonder if at some point these platforms will kind of get it together and figure some of this out, is like just the fact that you can't do something as simple as run that report that you just explained, right, within the actual platform, within Field Routes or Pest Pack or any others, and then do that automation. You guys are really solving a problem that probably honestly isn't a problem in certain industries, right? Where it's more tech savvy and those things are built in. But in this industry, and I imagine many others, you do have to get that data. And I guess what would people do before, if not with Cinch, like what do you export it into like a spreadsheet, and then you need a spreadsheet wizard on your team who's going to slice and dice that data. And then you need a separate outreach platform, right? That's
Correct.
going to actually perform the outreach, right? So Cinch kind of brings it all together for people.
Absolutely. Well, there's a few challenges that companies have. One, it's like being able to extract the data and really get specific on what you want to accomplish and who you want to target. Number two is the fact that you then have to compile all this, right? So you have to, so here's the process. So I would export a report from my existing CRM and then upload that somewhere, right? Whether it's to like some email platform out there. There's multiple email platforms you're aware of out there, right? And then what you do is you go in and send one email broadcast for one email to those people. And then what happens? Some people respond, some don't. So then there's no dynamic way to see that happened. And then those who responded, how do you pull them up? How do you, respond to those who did respond? Do you have a process for that? So a lot of it is so manual and it's so, siloed. Right. So I can send an email from that email platform, but what if they don't respond to the email? Well, on average, we know email has about a 20 to 30% open rate, but text messaging has about a 98% open rate, right? So the ability to not only pull the data that you need and get very targeted and specific with who you're going after, but then being able to leverage all communication channels. So what they're doing is exporting reports using this system over here for email, this system over here for texting, this system for Google reviews. It's all over the place. And it's just, not only is it challenging and a lot of manual work, but it's also, not cost effective and you have to manage multiple systems to go through this. So it's cobbled together. So the goal of Cinch is to combine this all into one source, allow you to pull in data from your CRM, Pest Pack, Field Routes, whatever, pull in data from Google My Business, have the ability to upload lists if you want to, and then have these in one source where we can clean and match the data and then help you utilize that data through multiple channels or all channels that you email, text message, direct mail, Google ad and Facebook ad audiences, doing Google reviews, surveys, right? So it's the importance of not having those manual processes. Because here's what we see, and Andrew, you've probably seen this, and I would love to hear your perspective because it seems like you've seen this a lot, but companies try to do this. You start that manual process, and what happens during the summer when you're busy? It all goes to the back burner. So you have good intentions, and I will tell you, every company has good intentions on going after cross-sell opportunities or winning back past customers. But when you're so busy during the busy season, you don't have time to manually go through those processes. And that's why companies struggle to do this, and most companies don't do a great job out of it.
Is there a certain size of company or a certain like an amount of data that where you really start to see a bigger ROI? Like, should a sole operator be thinking about these things? Or is it kind of like, well, you have other priorities and maybe the additional revenue or added lifetime value you get by putting some of these processes in place doesn't really start to quite pay off until you get, to 1 million in revenue or 1,000 recurring customers, or like, are there numbers around how big you should be when you want to start really prioritizing this? Or is it like mindset from day one?
Yeah, I think to your point, not that a solo operator can't use something like Cinch, but in my experience, it tends to be when they're a little bit more established. You're not in that crazy like build phase where the solo, obviously you're in the field sometimes, or a lot of the times, right? Especially as a solo operator, it can be a little bit challenging just because you're trying to build a business. You're trying to understand, what do I want to accomplish? And you may not have, that much of a customer base to market to or to leverage right now. So what I tend to see is it's typically companies that are a little bit more established and you want to take it to the next level, right? You have valuable data, you have a valuable customer base, and it's time to leverage that and understand that, hey, there's a lot of competition out there. So I need to keep the customers that I have and increase their value, right? There's tons of statistics out there about, you have a 50% higher close rate with your existing customers as opposed to brand new customers, right? They're more likely to recommend you to somebody else if they've been with you for a while. They're more likely to add on that add-on service. So I want to preface that, like, it can work, just you want to know your strategy. And the great thing about Cinch is we have a phenomenal support team. So there are pre-built journeys. So we call them customer journeys, or another way to say that is drip campaigns. We have pre-built content and things that we can do and leverage for you. But Cinch is extremely valuable when you have somebody on that end of things, that company's end, who owns the Cinch project, works with our team, and they're providing the strategy and we're helping with the execution. That's where it tends to be the most valuable. Now, we have immediate value for companies that want to leverage Google reviews. So Google review and reputation management is a piece of what we do. And and we do it as well as any of those out there that you know of that just handle reputation management, but we do so much more on top of that. The great thing about Cinch is you can start really simple and you can keep it very siloed when it comes to Google reviews, but then you can continue to grow in and expand.
Yeah, my guess also would be that, like, is this the kind of work that you might even enjoy, right? If you like data, if you like playing around with cool technology, if you enjoy that kind of work, then I could see someone really just throwing themselves into this, right? Because whether you're small or you're a sizable company with someone that you're actually going to offload this to, who has the bandwidth, ultimately what you guys are fixing is a leaky bucket, right? Like most pest control companies from day one, they're working with a leaky bucket because there's only so many things that they can focus on at once. Usually it's new customers. They're not really thinking about customer lifetime value. They're not thinking about, following up with leads that didn't close 6 months or the next year when their contract is out with the other company, right? There's so many opportunities to increase average order value, right? To increase customer lifetime value, to improve customer service. And you're basically ignoring all those holes in your bucket until you get to the point where you can start to address some of them. And the biggest hole of all usually is, how do I get more leads? So that's what everyone is focused on, right? But the problem is, what they don't realize is that these other areas of the business that suffer means that their customer acquisition cost is the highest it's ever going to be, right? And their ROI on that is the lowest it's going to be, because they're not converting as much traffic on the website into leads as they could. They're not converting as much of those leads into sales as they could. They're not retaining those customers as long as they could. Ultimately, all of that, turns into lost revenue. And yeah, I think what everyone talks about is, what is my cost per lead? And I suppose the metric, maybe you can speak to this, like, I don't know what number or KPI this would be, but there's got to be some number. I'm sure someone's come up with something where it's like, how much, like, what's the opportunity cost almost of not fixing all these other things? And what does it cost me to, on average, get my customers to stick around for an extra year or two, or on average pay me an extra $50, $100, couple $100 per year? I'll bet that the cost of doing those things is way lower, and the ROI of fixing those things is way higher than getting more leads in the door. But more leads is what everyone focuses on. Is that a metric, or like how do you guys quantify, how do you do that calculation when a company comes to you and says, like, we don't really know how much money we're losing, we just kind of know there's certain areas we're not taking advantage of? Do you guys do that analysis, or do you just go in, you execute, and then you see what comes of it?
Really great points there, right? Because, and to echo what you said, the companies, and I don't know if I mentioned this, or I don't think I've mentioned this here on this podcast, but I used to work for Brio Stack Software, right? So competitor of Field Routes, Pest Pack, right? And I was there for almost 2 years, and most recently was the director of sales before I came over to Cinch. And the biggest thing that I saw, right, because we talked about technology, is that the companies that were thriving, right, the companies that I see that grow the most are those that can combine the automation with personalization, right? So it's like, some companies are afraid of technology because they think it's going to take away the personal touch, right? So they're like, oh, well, our customers want to hear from us directly. They like that phone call. And I would challenge them a little bit and say, well, is it that they like the phone call, or is that just how you've always done things, right? Have you not tried the email? Have you not tried the automated text message? Do you get opt-in for text messaging? And those are things that we help with. But the ones that are most successful are those that are saying, hey, we can automate a lot of this process, right? So that feeds into the point that you're making. Most companies, every company that I talk to, they want new customers. Totally get it. And we want to help you get new customers. But to your point, it doesn't matter if you have a leaky bucket, right? What does it matter if you're getting new customers if you can't keep the ones that you already have, right? And then if you have great customers, but you're not leveraging them and letting them know what services you offer, then guess what? They're calling somebody else, right? And Andrew, you probably heard this before. I use this example all the time, but I hear companies that, hey, we went out to do a general pest service at this home, and we got there and there was a flag in the lawn that said, Mosquito Joe or Mosquito Squad or Mosquito Guy, whatever it may be. And they're like, hey, we offer mosquitoes, but your average customer, your person sitting at home is not thinking about what services you offer, right? And they think they have to go call that company that has mosquito or termite or lawn or whatever it may be bed bugs in the name, but that's not how it works. So if you can proactively let people know, seasonally that, hey, we're coming into summertime. Let's protect you and your family as you barbecue. We offer awesome mosquito services. Or you're coming into fall and you want to let people know that you do rodents or rodent exclusion, right? To help boost your revenue during the fall and winter. Those are things that matter. So when I talk to companies, I'm trying to help them understand their own cost of acquisition because every company is different, right? So when it comes to those numbers, I want to understand you and your company, what your challenges are, what your opportunities are, what your current customer lifetime value is, what are your acquisition costs for new customers, hey, what would it mean to you if you could add on 10 new mosquito subscriptions each month during the summer or whatever number it is. And I help companies quantify it from their perspective because it doesn't matter what this companies, I could talk about averages and all that, but my goal is to get down into the details with this specific company and say, hey, where are the opportunities here? And then we can formulate a plan together. Oh, hey, let's leverage your data to get you those mosquito cross sells. So we have a company, and I don't. They won't mind me sharing the name, but Innovative Pest Control out of Texas. They use Cinch. A good friend of mine, Kevin Kine, is the president there, and he's talked to us about they ran one mosquito journey during the summer, a cross sell. So it took their existing customer base and said, hey, we have opportunity to sell this customer base mosquito services. And that one campaign, they will fully say paid for Cinch for the entire year, right? They're now doing a rodent exclusion campaign during the fall, winter. And that campaign has had massive success as well in just over a month, right? So that's what I want companies to understand is, hey, let's keep the people you have. Let's maximize their value. Let's leverage these customers and your 5-star reviews to get referrals, right? You probably know, Andrew, and you've seen this in your experience, that referrals a lot of times are the best customers you can get, right? And then let's capitalize on when we have people that have filled out web forms, we can have a script to push those into Cinch and then automatically nurture those leads, whether it's from Google Ads or from your website or wherever. Let's nurture those through automated communication. So those are just some examples. And I know I just rambled on there, but it gets me excited because of the opportunities that I've seen. And with every company, it's a lot of the things are the same, but a little bit different. And that's where Cinch can really leverage your opportunities just by customizing to what you're trying to accomplish.
So there's a couple things you said there I want to reference. The first one was operators being afraid of automating their communications processes or probably just flat out not reaching out to them at all unless there's a
Mhm.
problem, right?
Yep.
Because in the pest control industry, everyone seems to have come to an understanding, right or wrong, that our customers want to hear from us as little as possible because the only time we hear from them is when there's a problem, right? It's pest control you could argue it's almost like a grudge purchase. It's kind of like if you're a business, paying for IT support is not like a super fun bill to pay because
Yeah, yeah.
you're paying a bill where you're paying for things to not go wrong, and your only interaction with those companies often is like something's broken and I need you to fix it, and I'm upset and I don't feel good, and whatever, right? So pest control is similar in that way, and I don't know that I've ever actually I don't know I've ever spoken with anyone who has tried the opposite, meaning like have often consistent communication with customers via email, via text, whatever it is, other than every few months when you go out to service the home and leave a door flyer and what their experience is. But my guess would be that the way to maximize customer lifetime value is to stay in touch, is to remind them of the value that they're getting, to quantify it as much as possible. Of course, do that in a way that is as personalized as possible, in a way that makes sense and makes the customer feel good.
I wanna ask you a
Yeah,
question, Andrew, along those same
yeah.
lines. So, what are the companies if you ever unsubscribe from an email, right, like email subscription, if you unsubscribe from there or you opt out of a text message from a company, what are the reasons that you typically do that personally?
Yeah, personally, it's because I'm hearing from companies too often. Usually
Yeah.
those are like e-commerce companies who are sending
Mhm.
me a new promotion every freaking day.
Yep.
And that's all it is. It's just like discount, discount, discount. And it's every day. And I'm just like, just don't care
You're
enough
like, "I
to
can't
let
anymore."
this
No.
fill up my inbox. Yeah, that's easily the most common. Otherwise, why would I unsubscribe? The value, like I really value my time, and so I don't want to spend even 30 seconds looking at an email. That's not going to be useful to me in some way. So that would be another common reason. I mean, those are the two ones that come up
Yeah, so you
immediately.
so you make a great point there, right? So as you think about it, because you mentioned that pest control operators, and I've seen this in my almost 4 years in pest control technology, that they're like, "Oh, we don't wanna bug our customers." And it's like, totally understand where you're coming from, but there's a balance there because your average person's not sitting at home thinking about pest control, right? Like, I'm not I can tell you I'm in pest control, and I don't go home and think about it besides, like, my work part of things. But when you have a problem or you see a pest, or you see a rat running around or mouse, whatever, under your Christmas tree, guess what? You're going to call pest control. Now, if I have a great relationship with my pest control company, or they keep their company at the top of my mind, then I'm going to reach out to that company. So here's the challenge, right? Is if you don't see somebody very often, or you come out and spray every once in a while, but then they have a very specific problem, who knows if they'll call you or not, right? So the goal is to balance it, is to not disappear only when they have a problem, but it's also to not overwhelm them. To your point, I agree with you. Like I unsubscribe or opt out of the companies that send me too much communication that is irrelevant to me. That's the biggest key. Like if you're a gas station and you're sending me Red Bull energy drink promotions and I don't like Red Bull, like no, I don't really care about that, right? Or you're an e-commerce like you said, a clothing store, or like one of my kids opt into it or something because they like, PacSun or whatever. I don't want that stuff myself. So then I opt out. So the key with pest control and that I really see is let's provide value to your customers here and there. So that can come in the form of like new customer welcome journeys. It can be educational. It could be like DIY tips to prevent pests during this time of year. So when you're providing value to them, then that's the key, right? In that communication, you're keeping it personalized is the next thing. The biggest thing is targeted, relevant communication, right? That's what Cinch can help you do. And that's where the true power lies, where when we're integrating your data from your point of sale and allowing you to segment, and even in the middle of a drip campaign, you can filter out particular people. Or if they take the action you want, like they click on the link, they reply yes, we pull them out of the journey or the drip campaign and then continue on only to those who did not respond or take an action, right? And then when you send direct communication and you're not getting interaction or responses, what we can do then is pull them out, or we can push that specific group of people into ad audiences. So they see your Google ad or they see your Facebook ad, right? And think about that's the world we live in right now. I don't want to get bombarded constantly, but if I'm scrolling and I see, hey, there's, Pesty podcast, I'm like, oh yeah, those guys were awesome. They took care of me last time. I'm gonna reach out to them because I just had a pest issue, right? So that's where it comes in. And that's what Cinch is phenomenal at, is drilling down to help you be as specific, targeted, and timely as possible so that when you do communicate with a customer, you're not wasting it and you're getting the best interaction possible.
Yeah, and relevance and the importance of it is true across all marketing. Every time we take on a new client, we teach them about our 40-40-20 framework, which says that 40% of the success of your direct marketing efforts, which is everything we do, almost everything we do, is going to come from the quality of the list, meaning getting in front of the right people at the right time. The second 40% of the success of the direct marketing campaign is about the offer. How good is it? How differentiated is it? And then the last 20% of the success of the campaign is going to be about the creative, the copywriting and design, right? But so in theory, if you completely screw up the relevance of your outreach, meaning you're getting in front of the wrong people or at the wrong time, your failure rate is going to be very high, right? But you could also get in front of the right people at the right time with a halfway decent offer, right? Because hopefully your offer isn't completely irrelevant, and your creative could be kind of trash, and the chance of success can actually still be decently high. The relevance is just so important. And it's one of the reasons that Google is one of the most valuable companies in the world and why they can charge what they charge, right? Because they have made it possible for you to get in front of someone looking for pest control services right now. And that is incredibly
Boom,
valuable.
immediately.
Let's talk about some things that are a little more actionable, a little more specific as it relates to automation. So, what are the most common automations that pest control companies start with? And what are the automations that have the biggest impact? So, two questions there.
Yeah, absolutely. So the easiest ones to start with, I'd say right away, are Google reviews. And not only just requesting Google reviews, I tell companies this all the time. Even if you're using another reputation management company or software and you like it, there's still value in connecting your review data to Cinch. Here's why. We could actually set up, and these companies we've talked about, Pestco, we have a case study on our website you can find on cinch.io. It's right there. Pestco Holdings, they use us to do all their Google reviews. And what they've done is they've set up automated review response, right? So what you can do is 5-star review comes in, you can have a bunch of templated responses and the system automatically responds with one of those, never duplicates them, right? It'll be completely random, but they're professional, and then they personalize to the person who left the review, right? So boom, automation right there. You don't have to go in and manually respond to every single 5-star reviews. And obviously as you get bigger and bigger, that becomes more of a challenge, right? To constantly stay on top of that. But on the flip side, if it's less than a 5-star review, we can actually help you, or it'll ping a member of your team. So you can send a notification through email or text message to someone to follow up, and manually respond, and contact the customer directly, right? So the review response stuff that we do, that's easy. Like when we talk about get up and going right away, new customer welcome journeys. So you can send them a welcome when they sign up for service, and then you can send them a what to expect at your first appointment communication. That's one that I really, really like. And then other ones that are super common that we see right away, cross sell. That's massive, right? The ability to cross sell your existing customer base to leverage your other services and offerings. If you're offering a new service, if your pest company starting to do lawn or wildlife or whatever it may be. The other one would be win back customers. So having the system check every day if somebody went inactive a specific amount of time ago. So I could literally have Cinch check your field routes and say, hey, every day I want to see if somebody went inactive 6 months ago. If they did, we're going to enter them into this group, to take down a communication path of winning them back, getting them back on service with you. And that's something that can run in the background and do its job. And then another big one is the customer referral journey. So being able to get very specific on who you're requesting referrals from. So maybe somebody left me a 5-star review and it was only their second appointment. Maybe I don't want to request a review from them quite yet, but maybe there's John Smith out there who's been with me for 3 years, has never missed an appointment, and has yet to send me a referral. Leaves me another 5-star review. Maybe now it's time to go in and automatically request a referral from him. So all of those, and the great thing is, Andrew, is that we have a number of pre-built journeys, drip campaigns that we've helped design for pest control companies that you can utilize pretty much from the get-go. So all those that I mentioned are ones that are pre-built. We have a template, we have a foundation for those. And I would say the most valuable from a revenue standpoint, cross-sell, win backs, and those referral journeys. And then from a retention standpoint, obviously your Google reviews, doing new customer welcome journeys, and then also doing customer appreciation type stuff, or like contests or giveaways, things like that are all things that you can do through Cinch.
Can we double click on any one of a few of those? So either a win back campaign that comes to mind that was successful, and walk me through exactly what that campaign looked like, or a cross sell campaign that went especially well. I'm curious about what does it look like on a couple fronts. One is, how does the company operate so that they are prepared to take advantage of automation?
Yes.
And that can be in terms of company culture, or that could be in terms of processes, or the way they, how seriously they take the data and the way they store it. And also, what did they do maybe more tactically to have a lot of success? So what did the company look like in terms of, them really excelling in a campaign? And then tactically, what did the campaign look like so that it's just like really, really, got great results?
Yes. No, great, great, great question. So first with the company, there's got to be a strategy and a commitment to this, right? Like, because it's very difficult to, like with anything, you have a priority, you have an idea, and you, for lack of a better term, it's a half-baked solution, right? So you want to go in with this. And the cool thing is that with Cinch, It's not one of those softwares out there where here's a video, watch this, have fun, Andrew. Good luck with things. Let us know how it goes, right? No, we hold your hand through that process and we have meetings with you until you're at a point where you feel comfortable with it. So, number one, I think one big reason why companies don't do this is they're intimidated by this process, either manual process or taking on a platform and having to learn that, right? And a lot of that is because they've been burned in the past by experiences where they didn't get a lot of support. One, it's that starts, the company has to have a commitment to it. Two, we trust you, right? We trust you to understand your demographic, your business, what you're trying to accomplish, and then with that strategy, we help you execute that and go in and say, okay, this is how we build out this journey. This is what we've seen in the past. And Cinch, we just started in really, they hired me to build out pest control March of 2023, right? We started in automotive. So we own large accounts with Jiffy Lube, Grease Monkey, Quick Lubes out there, right? So that we are used to dealing with thousands and thousands of customers across multiple locations, right? So the goal is to go in with a plan, right? And we can help you formulate that plan. The other part of that is to be proactive. And you probably see this too, Andrew. So often, and the companies that are struggling to do these things is they're completely reactive, right? What I mean by that is proactive is you have these customers already on the schedule. Do they have all the services that you offer? And if they don't, how can we get them in front of these customers in a non-threatening way, but that's also very, very supportive and just educational, right? So being proactive is the key to this process being successful, meaning you understand the data, you understand what you want to accomplish, and you get it in front of your customers, giving them time to make a decision when they already have something going on with you, right? That's the first step. Any questions on that? Hopefully that took care of the company side of things.
Yeah, at a high level, what I'm hearing is have a plan, like know
Yep.
what you actually want to accomplish, commit to that plan, right? If you're going to assign some specific task and project to an individual or a couple people, make sure you are having them follow through with that, which I see a
Yes.
lot of that where, owner of the company is kind of sort of delegating, but then he throws up his hands and says, I can't get them to do what I want them to do. And I'm just like, you're the owner, like
Yeah,
tell
yeah.
them what they
Yep.
need to do. So commit to the plan, and then understanding your customer is super important. And yeah, we could have a whole podcast on understanding your customer and the
Absolutely.
importance of it and how to understand the customer. But those three things are kind of the pillars of companies that have a lot of success with Cinch or any kind of marketing automation just automation that they do. And then, yeah, on the campaign side, what did the execution look like where it just went really well? Like I said, ideally in cross-selling or a win-back campaign would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So to add on that, and then it bridges us over to the actual campaign is right. It is important, whether it is the owner or the owner assigns it to somebody, that you have somebody who is committed to this process on the company end, right? Because we look at this, as like I say, a hand holding process. We give you phenomenal support and you want that person owning it on that company side for sure. To see that it's right. It's with anything, you need somebody invested who wants to do this and understand that there's work in the beginning with us. And then from there, it can run in the background and do its job, right? And the reason is this. So when you talk about the structure of what we're going on, know very clearly what we want to accomplish, right? So that goes back to the plan of the company. Then we set up the parameters, right? So who is the group that we want to target? So we're getting as targeted and as specific as possible if we're trying to cross-sell from general pest to mosquito or termite to general pest. We want to understand, is it a specific geographic area? Is it a specific type of customer? Is it a specific technician's route that we want to focus on that may be struggling? And then from there, we want to leverage all types of communication. So email is always the cheapest, right? You can send as many emails as you want. So let's try by sending some emails, right? Based upon the interaction of the emails, which we give you a ton of analytics on open rate, what's the click-through rates, things of that nature, right? Then what we do is we say, okay, well, we've tried emailing this group. They didn't respond. So now let's leverage text message, right? And then like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, oh, they didn't respond to text message. Now let's push them into Google ads or Facebook ad audiences. Or maybe, we have a list of, of inspections that we did for this home builder. Now let's send mailers to them, these addresses to try to get them on regular service, right? So it's understanding who to target, what means of communication do we want to utilize, and what's our end goal or call to action. That's where the rubber meets the road there. You can do all this stuff, but if you don't have a good call to action or a good follow-up process, then you're going to miss out on those opportunities, right? There are tools within Cinch that we can help, right? Automated responses. We can send notifications and push it directly to a person. We can have them, web form part of the communication, or direct them to a web form to fill out, and that creates interest for you to follow up with it. But that call to action and then the subsequent follow-up is absolutely the key to making you successful. And then we will show you the analytics, and then we can say, hey, no campaign's perfect. You know this, Andrew, from a marketing perspective. No campaign's perfect, but what did we learn? What can we change now? Can we A/B test as part of a drip campaign? You can do that with Cinch, right? So it's this constant moving process of, number one, something is better than nothing, but then improving what you're doing is even better than the something, if that makes sense, right? It's like
Mhm.
learning from it and adapting the approach. That's what you can do. And that's what's really exciting about Cinch, is you can start small and then you can just keep expanding and learning more and more and doing more and more.
Yeah, this is super cool. I mean, guys, if you're listening, if you have a bunch of data sitting around doing a whole lot of nothing, start filling some of those holes in your bucket. Start looking at how to cross sell and increase your, customer lifetime value, how to improve the customer experience, how to get more referrals. There's so much opportunity to use the data that you have that you're very likely missing out on if you're not doing some kind of automation, whether it's with Cinch or another partner of ours, Pest AI, who, does things a little bit different and has different capabilities. Just make sure that you're, at the very least looking at this and trying to figure out what is it that we're possibly missing out on. And I'm sure if you contact the guys at Cinch and Gary, they'll be happy to figure out what data you have available and talk through, what are some of those areas of opportunity so that you can really start to drive additional revenue as a good place to start. So, Gary, with our last couple minutes here, anything you want to leave the audience with?
Again, Andrew, thanks for this opportunity. I love doing stuff like this. And, chances are a lot of your listeners have seen me across the country, right? So I travel everywhere with Cinch. I go to the majority of the NPMA events. I try to go to as many local events as one human can get to in a year. But that's always been my philosophy with BrioStack into Cinch right now, is being a part of the industry and supporting the industry. And I am, if you have a chance to talk with me, I very much believe, like what I mentioned earlier, in that consultative approach of understanding your business, understanding what you want to accomplish, and helping you see the value of what something like Cinch can do. And you mentioned it there, Andrew. I would love to have a conversation with you. It's worth taking a look at Cinch and how we can do things and how we can help you out. A lot of these softwares out there have the idea of doing something like this, but when you're already so spread with all the features and functionality that you have, it's hard to nail something like this unless that's exactly what you do, right? And Cinch, we are experts in the data. We are experts in how to communicate and when to communicate. And my thing is, like, I'd love to have a conversation. If it makes sense for you, great, we keep talking. If not, guess what? I know that it's not a fit for every single company or every single person, but at least you know what's out there. And at least maybe it helps you think of ways that you can improve your business. And at the end of the day, I love my job, and I love working for this company because I can absolutely, it's something that can help everybody somehow, some way, whether it's now or down the road. And we love that opportunity to show you what's available. And at the very least, you're going to see me everywhere. You're going to see me out at events. You're going to see me, on podcasts, and I'm always happy to support the industry in whatever ways that I can, and in opportunities like this.
Cool. Thank you very much, Gary. I appreciate your
Yeah.
time. And guys, we'll see you next time.
Awesome.